Go ahead and get fixing bands. And
You guys are talking too much on the
what these
desk.
teams are going to be able to go through. I anticipate, as much as I'd like to say a lot of support bans and things like that because of the two of them, I actually think we'll maybe see just the standard out of the two and maybe a Circuit ban early on, but for the most part, I don't know that they're actually going to take that many shots.
Yeah, with the priority order as it lies for support being in line with Geb, Sylvanas, and Khepri, as Jake alluded to into his interview, I doubt we do see too many targeted bans in the support column. The Ymirs of the past, the Horuses, not generally going to be looked at here. So instead, the Leviathans going to go ahead and ban the standard Odin, and on the other side, the Bolts going to target out that Terra. Both gods that have been very versatile and very strong here in Phase 3. Umoja as well kind of finds herself in that column. But when you're going for these very standard bans, it leaves a lot open still. Very recently, Tiamat's been working her way through the ban phase very often. Umoja has been as well, so the Bolt's probably happy with taking that one away. And there's the Tiamat gone, but still plenty out there.
Opens up things, you have to talk about it. Hell is at the top of that list for a reason. Ardio's at the top of that list, but the Khepri as well has been a very big point of contention. When you look at specifically these mid laners, but maybe even more so Venenu, the Morrigan, it joins that conversation, and it makes things, I think, a little more interesting for the Bolts and the Leviathans. It is as much to thwart what I said at the beginning. Nothing but support bans from the Bolts. Terra, Umoja, and the Khepri joins over there. You had mentioned the Tiamat, but the Odin alongside that with the Leviathans. It feels like a lot of control, but there's so much available. I mean, you have to look at the jungle picks that are available right now, what Lasber's been playing, what we've seen Jake play. The Uller still available, someone that we've seen controlled a lot. So Leviathans have a lot on their plate.
Yeah, the Leviathans might be looking to ban out the Raijin here. Paul, in his interview yesterday, said that Tiamat and Raijin still are the two best mid laners inside the game, but instead it is going to be that Circuit. The Olympus Bolts not going to be allowed to take that one in their first slot, but are allowed to go towards their support of choice. And Geb locked in immediately. You said it a little bit earlier. We don't have a lot of data on awesome Jake's Geb, but I've got some faith in him to perform on this god.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you just kind of anticipate, hey, a good support playing a good Guardian in the game right now is, a good support playing a good support should theoretically add up to be a good support. I actually like that Circuit ban, though, just because it feels like it targets Jake and Lasber at the same time. Although we saw Lasber playing a little bit of the Nike, it does still let the Ardio through, who has been oppressive, but not winning so much lately.
No, she's been struggling a little bit to find the win column, because generally when you go towards that Ardio, I think it's inside of that first slot, and you leave a lot available to the other side. Though the Leviathan's able to pick it up in second pick, probably feels pretty good for them, and now they shore up that sustain that Ardio is already affording your team through the Druid stance, now with Hell as well. That's a lot of sustain early on. The Bolts likely going to be taking their eyes towards the Onks, the Brawler's Beatsticks, and the Divine Ruins already.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone caught that at the bottom of the screen. Hell has played 5 games so far this phase and has lost all 5 of them. That is not a very promising stat line to see it locked in. That being said, one of my memories of this Hell in Shinto's hands is a very early double kill. And of course, when you have something like Ardio on one side, like as a bodyguard, and then you get Uller on the other, it feels like you've got nothing but strength on the side of the Leviathans. Nike and the Morrigan get locked in here for the Bolts. They're going to start up the next round of bans. Leviathans take out the Cerberus as of right now to help both Ardio and Hell. A lot of healing, as you had highlighted. The Nike and the Morrigan feels really good for the Bolts.
Yeah, it seems like the Leviathans are kind of hedging their bet, saying this Nike is likely jungle bound here, as they do toss a ban towards that Cerberus, which is generally that soul lane god. Geb doesn't really have a whole ton of flex potential, no matter what the SEC might try and convince you of. Generally, this god is going to find himself inside a support.
In the way back when, though, Divios.
With the Geb solo,
and
or
it
like
was
Mando Warrior doing Geb
only him.
Yeah, well, let's put him in support, and I think that's where the 408 is looking at taking themselves. But as of right now, the Olympus Bolts are lacking mightily in pressure. Nike doesn't really bring a whole lot of jungle pressure. Generally around level 6 or 7 is where she starts to hit her stride. Geb struggles a lot in the early game phase. It's very easy to shut down that god, and the Morrigan obviously needs some items online before she can play that assassin style. So I'm expecting the Bolts to try and pick up some sort of these bridge picks in these next 2 slots, whereas the Leviathans, I'd argue they've got pretty decent pressure already. Hell up against the Morrigan is going to have clear advantage. She's not only going to deal a little bit more damage to the wave, but also healing her own, as well as poke advantage, I'd say, with that repulse ability. And then we don't need to talk about how strong and annoying Ardio is inside of the soul lane. She's going to have just about all the fun that you could with that additional CDR of the blue buff and self-sustain. And then, Ull scales really well with these new mace changes.
Yeah. We highlighted the Cerberus ban a little bit earlier. Cthulhu is banned alongside that from the Leviathans. The other side, the Bolts take some shots at Panatom, get rid of the Susano and the Erlong Shen. And this is another support that gets locked in here for the Leviathans that has been on the rise. If you're watching, I believe it was the Kings yesterday, enough to first pick it. Granted, the Bolts did win the game against this Sylvanas. But this Sylvanas has been on the rise lately, ban-worthy in some cases and first pick-worthy to some teams.
Yeah, that minor rework that he got to his first ability, giving you additional cooldown on all of your abilities, is just so nice.
The idea that I can pull you more often makes me happy.
Not just pull you more often, but heal your team more often, root any of everybody, go for the knock-up as well. This god is very versatile right now, but going for a third dedicated healer inside of your draft means that the Bolts, when they do pick up that anti-heal, when they do find that Ankh, are going to find a lot of value with it as well. Sylvanas, it's incredibly hard to be choosy with who you're healing inside of these team fights. You use press 2 to apply damage.
Are you near me?
Yeah, you're getting healed. The same could be said of Hell. The same could be said of Artio as well. It's not a lot of single targets. So I think the Bolts are in a position where they could legitimately, A, pick up this Scotty. Hopefully, I see you get excited. Or B, as I was going to say, go towards multiple Ankhs and get full value from that passive.
Since it was banned against them however long ago, I've been waiting to see this, especially because in theory, with these item changes, like Scotty seems pretty good, right? I mean, Calder should be able to do more damage, but also just in general, Scotty should be able to do more damage. And also, Bear is kind of the only person that I anticipate playing Scotty ever in the Pro League. Maybe you could see Panda Cat whip it out every now and then. But alongside the set, you had kind of mentioned it earlier, that they thought the set where the Nike was going to go to the jungle, which is why you see the Cthulhu as well as the Cerberus. With Set getting locked in, shifts that Nike more over to Haddix, doesn't it?
I agree with that, but maybe Scotty could be the exception to the rule. I'm just kind of a notorious Scotty hater. I think that
got hit by one too many Calder roots?
Yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe it's just that I don't know how good this god really is in an organized environment. I think that even when Scotty was at her best, and she had a couple of metas way back when where she was really strong, and she could be again. I mean, with the build that is popular these days, it should be now, right? That she's pretty good. But I think in comparison to a god like Uller, I feel like Zapman should just be slamming in this lane, but Barra picked this lane matchup, which is telling him this, so we'll see if he can manage it well.
Jake will go towards a blink for his first relic. Wrong you will pick up the shell to get a little bit of extra defense for the Leviathans. Now that Panatom's hit level 5, could be looking to make a gank here in this dual lane. Baron Jake still level 4. Knockup goes through and a leap in by Zapman. Panatom waiting for the initiation. Goes in with the blink, fear no evil, and that's easy pickings for the jungler. A sick pull by Wrong you grabs Jake right back in, and a kill their way. Double in the duo lane. Leviathans on the board.
Perfect opportunity to get that gank. Not a lot of ward vision, and by a lot, I mean literally any on that left-hand side for the Bolts. Barra's vision shard just coming back up. Didn't get an opportunity to drop it in time, and it's just perfect timing from Panatom to come over, and that could not have gone any better. You get the first blood for Panatom, you get the beads for Barracuda, because now Zapman has solo kill potential because he's going to be able to spike in by this Jotun's Wrath right off the rip. Really great start there from the Leviathans.
And Wrong You's able to pick up a Ward Chalice for himself and the Lotus Crown as a first item. So now there's going to be even more protections when he can get those heals off. Not that they even really needed it. And that last little fight, that was just all damage. A great ultimate placement by Panatom. Shoved Barracuda right against the wall, and there was nowhere for him to run. Now maybe looking for a pincer against Panatom. Skewer comes out, and the Ren from Haddix doing some good damage. Panatom gets his leap back just in time, but Venenu will chase him down and get the kill with that Dark Omen.
Don't think Panatom realized how in trouble he was, but even by the time he used that jump, he was never going to survive.
Hardcore going to take away that Scorpion and maybe take a life too. Lasbra uses the beads, but it's all in vain. Shinto picks up a kill for the mid lane. Haddix gets pushed back under the tower, and he'll end up losing his blue buff because of it. A lot of early skirmishes here by these teams right up in the 5-minute mark.
Place and prevent them from being super aggressive. So some of that credit may deserve to go to Lasbra more than anyone else.
Well, going back to base, Barracuda does pick up a Crusher, so a little bit of extra attack speed, some extra power, and Haddix, he'll get stunned out by Hardcore, but he's not too deterred. Pops the Sentinel of Zeus, walking forward towards Panatom. He's got some backup from Jake and Venenu, and even Lasbra sitting here in the lane. Rongyu goes in, gets a double ultimate, pulls Venenu, a quick stone shield from Jake, gets him out of danger, and a Fear No Evil from the jungler will push everybody away, but it's Lasbra who's in danger. A Cataclysm holds him in place, but Panatom will teleport right in and take down Lasbra. One more for Leviathans, but the Venenu is able to trade it off and take out the jungler. Now it's Venenu in danger. Our core chases him out, and Shinto picks him up.
Shinto able to grab him. Haddock's coming right back around, but he doesn't have a whole lot of buttons available, and that'll do it. It's a 2-for-1 for the Leviathans on this right side of the map, and including a blue buff invade.
Further to be gained there. Austin Jake still hasn't been able to hit 12 himself, so his second relic not available. Hardcore blinks against Venenu in the mid lane. Venenu trying to get under the tower, but there are 5 Leviathans staring him down. There's nowhere for the mid laner to go. Shinto credited with the kill.
That's one of the best ways to combat the Morrigan, is just get in her face with a tanky frontliner right away, and Yarkor's lack of hesitation proves huge. I mean, this is going to guarantee a free Gold Fury for the Leviathans. And now you're in the position as the Bolts that you've got to decide where we're going to put our foot in the sand. I mean, you've got to draw a line at some point and say, this is the objective we have to defend. But you never get a chance to do that if you keep getting picked, just like we saw there. So that's a big play by Yarkor. And now those big stands, those last final moments potentially, become harder and harder to execute upon by the Bolts. Side lanes. There should be no reason why the Leviathans aren't grouping up and pulling fire right now, because these Oni waves are going to get them value on these side lanes. The Bolts aren't going to be able to answer this left side wave at the very least, but you can force them to fight you and let your map advantage kind of materialize in an easier to see way. Leviathans just wasting a bit too much time, in my opinion. Desynced on their backs, could have been here much earlier.
Well, they'll start at the Fire Giant. Left side wave pushing in. Fire Giant down to almost half health already. It's only Haddox at the front line of the Fire Giant pit to try and answer back. Venenu sneaking around the back side of the pit. Might be looking for a gank. Might be looking for just some nice picks against him. He'll be spotted out by Hardcore. He'll be stunned out, slowed down, forced the transformation into Fear No Evil just to get him out of danger. That's a huge cooldown expended from the mid laner, and he's not any further than he was before. Zapman finds him. Hardcore sticks to him like glue.
Haddox in the middle of everybody. Big Cataclysm. Panatom low.
Shinto goes down. Lasbra credited with the kill, and now it's a 4v3. Hardcore in the middle of everybody. Lasbra is still chunking away, and Haddox picks up one. A knockup from Rongyu is good, but that may just be only to delay the inevitable. He's caught right out, and Lasbra picks up the double.
They cannot keep getting away with this, man. I am sick of it. How do the Bolts just get steamrolled in every early game, and it just doesn't matter because they just out-team fight? That is insane that they're able to continue to do this, but they did it again up against the healing comp. But exactly what we were worried about happened, where all this anti-heal comes into play. Jake gets a perfect blink Cataclysm. Leviathans group up too much, and that's what you want to do with the healing composition. You want to get next to each other with this hell.
Board aside from the supports, but that's about the life of the support. You're not really often going to hit that level 20 mark. Instead, it's now pushing up these towers. Only tier 2s left all across the board for both these teams, and the Bolts, they want to start this one, but the Leviathans giving up a bit of a soft defense here at this tier 2 tower, and they're not fully committed to giving it up just yet, but maybe if all 5 of the Bolts show up, that might be enough for them to back away. Maybe they're banking on their healing being a little bit too much for the Bolts to handle.
Shouldn't take long, though, for Barra with this build to hit this tier 2 tower down.
Not really misplay. You never know when the Morrigan is going to be in that decoy. You never know which one you're going to grab, and you never know when Haddox is going to blink in the backline. Finds 4 with the ultimate, and immediately the tier 2 tower will be shredded down. That's all the Bolts wanted, and Haddox makes a perfect distraction.
He uses both his relics and his ultimate to do it, though. It's a pretty expensive investment in order to just get a tier 2 tower. Primal Fury's up, but the Leviathans know they're good. Jake
in the backline, Cataclysm finds 2, and immediately the Fear No Evil comes out from Panatom. Hardcore is bullying the backline. It's a transformation from Venenu into Haddox. He'll leap in the backline, get his own ultimate, and get some good damage. Barracuda takes down one. Shinto on the run. Rongyu slowed down, and the Bolts are able to turn the fight back in their favor. Venenu chasing forward with Jake, but they won't find Shinto. He'll make it back to the fountain, and now the Phoenix under siege by the Bolts.
Leviathan just caught totally off guard by Jake willing to go in that early into that team fight. And I was saying that Barra's got to make a big difference onto Yarkor in order for these team fights to change, and he basically soloed Yarkor in that fight, which is probably better at this point anyways. I think I'd rather have my Ullr alive so that I can actually do Fire Giant with any sort of speed. And you've just got to get on top of Barra. I think you have to try and bypass this blink initiation. Let Haddox and Jake do what they're going to do and see if we can't make Bera uncomfortable on the back line.
Two Leviathans take this 4v5 at the Fire Giant. It started up, and Bera will tank it with Calder and Jake in tow. Get a little bit of damage against it. Hax gets pulled in by Rongyu. He'll immediately use his leave. The Cripple Field comes out from Hardcore. Venenu and Bera are caught by Panatom. The ultimate was expended, but they'll both be able to make it out with their lives. Now it's Haddix diving the backline for Shinto, and ultimate out of Venenu gets the transformation into the Nike again. Panatom has to leap over to try and bail for his team, but Lasbra takes down Shinto and is able to just squeak by as Haddix picks up another. The barrier pushes Zapman against the wall, and a leap away from Haddix makes sure the Bolts can get out, but Hardcore is stuck in the middle of three, and he'll take one maybe before trading out his life. Or could he get Venenu's shield comes through? Lasbra teams up to get a double in the backline. Hardcore now has nowhere to go. Stuck. Cannot get that kill against Venenu just yet. And they'll fall down. A full deicide for Bera.
And that's going to be it. The Bolts take game one despite a massive deficit through the early stages of this game. It just takes a couple of team fights to go their way, and they were able to stagger out the Leviathans so well. There's not a lot of damage coming from the Leviathans in this game. I think you felt the lack of DPS on their side. You look at the player damage numbers, everyone a little bit low. Felt like the Leviathans just lost all their confidence after losing that one team fight by Fire Giant.
Not only in playstyle, but also in draft. We brought it up on that initial P's and B's that the Leviathans drafted for pressure all the way across the map. And when you do so and you establish pressure as the Leviathans had, you can't be losing team fights. Up 10,000 gold. It was exactly this engagement that turns it all around for the Olympus Bolts, walking into a Fire Giant 4 versus 5, actually. One of their players got picked initially. And then from there, the Olympus Bolts win that team fight. They get Fire Giant. They close up the majority of the gold lead, and they keep playing with that momentum until eventually the Titan falls down. But make no mistake, the Leviathans had this game in their hands. 10,000 gold at that early of a state in the game, about 21 minutes in. Should be an insurmountable lead, I'd argue.
I think I heard Aggro at one point mentioning he was just like that. They slowed down a little bit on the Leviathans, and like it seemed like the steam left with that. There was a period where they had such a good lead and a potential.
Mess up your blink engage on my Phoenix line? Maybe I beat you here. Oh, did you mess up one Fire Giant team fight? Well, you just lost the game off of it. And that's exactly what the Olympus Bolts look for every single time. But it's such a high risk.
Yeah.
If the Leviathans just play it a little bit slower around that Fire Giant engagement after they had gotten their pick back up, utilized their healing composition, the Olympus Bolts would not have been allowed to go for that counterpunch style. They would have just been knocked out. Unfortunately for the Leviathans, a little bit overzealous, a little bit out of position, and the Bolts are such a strong team that they will absolutely punish you for
Swinging
it.
changes. And if they're going to let the Leviathans just run it straight back, Leviathans will be first pick this time as opposed to second pick. And so that is going to change just a little bit of their draft. And, I mean, you had said it. I'm kind of looking at it, except for, like, Geb, who maybe is going to get first picked over some of the gods they had. They kind of ran exactly what they wanted to. So I am interested and anxious as to what the Leviathans are going to lock in here.
Yeah, we are. And I think maybe the Leviathans could even try and double down right on that early game aggressive style, maybe even put Rongyu on something like the Ymir or the Horus to even further push their lead in the early. Not that Sylvanas is exactly a poor pressure god, still has some of the best clear out of the Guardian role, maybe barring Yomoja, the second best, I'd say, as far as minions are concerned inside of the early game. But as of now, the Leviathans are keeping their heads towards some of the things the Bolts have been looking for. The Morrigan taken off the table, Geb removed as well, so the Bolts going to have to dedicate themselves to those more standard bans that we used to be seeing, Tiamat and Yomoja taken away.
Yeah, so far 2/5 of the team that the Bolts had taken away, as you had mentioned, the Geb and the Morrigan. This opens up, what was it, last time we had Terra, Khepri, Odin, and Serket were the bans that would have been, that were not the Tiamat and the Yomoja. So you only got 2 slots to fill 4 gods to make things go roughly similar. And it makes things a little more interesting. A lot of support focus away from the Bolts during the beginning of the last set. Still able to pick up the Geb first. Now that's going to be a change. Khepri, maybe something they actually want to let through. And Serket is the one that I'm keeping my eye on, but it's the Odin, actually, from the Leviathans, Mifflin. I'm kind of surprised, honestly, to see it, although, admittedly, with what he's been able to accomplish and Haddix just in general, it feels like a good ban.
Odin is just so frustrating to play against. Legitimately just shifts up your entire game plan in every single match. Odin makes you think about going towards that Phantom in the early game. Makes you think, okay, well, sure, I can leap out of the cage, but I'm taking damage on the tail end of it. It's pretty easy to chase you out there. It shifts up how you approach the team fight engagement. So, I mean, the communications on a pro team when you're playing with or against an Odin, here's what with Odin is like. Hey, is Ring of Spears up? No? All right, well, wait. How long on that cooldown? All right, we'll fight then. If you're playing against an Odin, oh, he used Ring of Spears? Let's go now. We
go.
got like 30 seconds. Let's get in there. So it really does change how you can approach these games. And now Hell going to round out the banning phase here from the Olympus Bolts. So the Leviathans are in a position where they could go towards that RDO in the first slot. I was going to bring up the Circuit as well, but I don't know why I would have brought up the Circuit when RDO's out there. And that god, although not winning the most on the playing field right now, is still incredibly dominant. Just so hard to deal with.
Did a lot in that last game, was just shy of being able to potentially turn around. Well, ended up being a full-on deicide and the game-ending wipe for the Leviathans. The other thing I was going to ask you, and this maybe is just something as the grand scheme, when you picked up, what was it, RDO, Hell, Sylvanas last time around, Odin seems to be a big thorn in the side for those three with the anti-heal he can bring. It kind of makes sense if they're maybe leaning towards some similar picks. Raijin, someone we didn't get to see last game, but with Morgan gone, Hell gone, you've got to figure something else out in the mid lane, and it will be the Khepri. That was the third ban from the Bolts last game. They're going to go ahead and scoop that up. Feels like, again, a solid foundation for what should be a good team.
Already the Bolts have themselves a little bit more early game pressure than they did in game one. Raijin's going to have a pretty decent matchup into whoever the Leviathans take inside of their mid slot. So pressure through the center of the map should favor the Olympus Bolts, at least insofar as the mages right now. And Raijin still does have incredibly strong scaling come into the late game. So if the Bolts do decide to play that more reactive counterpunch style where you're farming out throughout the early, you're not sacrificing too much because Taiko Drums is going to slam you in the late no matter what. Raiju is still one of the best teamfight tools from these mages outside of Ultimate. So I like a lot what the Bolts have here. This is surprising though. Hachiman selected this highly inside of your draft with Uhl still available. Even the Artemis, I'd argue, is still pretty strong as well. But Hachiman, very safe, CC immunity, as well as just kind of synergizes pretty well with this new style of build. Can work out, and it's something Zapman has liked a lot in the past.
It feels a lot like, and maybe this is just the declaration they wanted to make with that. Hey, you know what? You know Shinto and Panatom? Yeah, we're gonna wait a little bit before we lock in anything for them. We want to see what they're going into, especially because it might give them a glimpse into whether or not this is Nike solo again, or if it's going to be Nike in the jungle, which we have seen Lasper play recently, because he just did it yesterday. So it makes things interesting. Nike is that lock-in for the Bolts to finish out their top three. Terra is another interesting conversation, though. Banned heftily in, a few weeks ago. First game this set, Bolts ban it away, but hasn't really been picked up in the sets that she's been let through. She's kind of just been sitting on the sidelines, like everyone's amped her up, she's ready to go, but no one's actually letting her out onto the field.
Yeah, Terra still is incredibly strong, though. The CC core that she brings, able to lock down entire jungle pass as well as lanes with a root. Earthern Fury, don't need to really talk about how strong that ability is, but I will anyway. Gives your team a burst of healing and gives the enemies a burst of damage towards them.
Yeah,
so
that's
Terra
pretty good.
Helps out a lot inside of that team fight phase, which is where the Leviathans floundered inside of game one. But again, it is healing that you can't really be choosy about. If you're popping Earth and Fury, everybody within range is going to be applied by that heal as far as your allies are concerned. And when you've got things like Ankh on the other side, which might be getting looked at just because of this RDO, now all of a sudden whoever is getting healed is taking percentage more damage. Feels pretty bad for the Leviathans. So the Bolts might have their eyes towards that Ankh yet again.
Well, they ban out Morgan the Face, Susano for the Bolts. The other side bans out Daji and the Set, which caused a lot of trouble. A couple of double kills there for Lasbra towards the very tail end of the game. What do they need sitting here on the Bolts? We're still maybe potentially looking for a jungle, but a Hunter was the one that I was eyeing for. Somebody that doesn't necessarily need the counter matchup pick and also already knows their matchup, so you could just lock in whatever you're feeling. Ho Yi, who gets locked in here. 14% win rate across 7 games. Has not been the most successful Hunter in the last couple of weeks, despite the fact that he has risen, at least in terms of picks.
Yeah, Emilito actually played this pick yesterday, I believe, and he looked pretty good on it. He was putting the pressure on a Cyclone Spin. Worth noting, though, Cyclone Spin was playing that set, so wasn't able to return damage from a range. But still, this god has a lot of kill potential. The stun is incredibly nice. The teamfight ultimate as well can shift up these engagements, shift up where you're allowed to walk inside of the jungle and up against these tanky gods like Artio, like Gilgamesh, the Mark of the Golden Crow does feel incredibly strong, dealing additional damage as their HP bars go down. So Hou-Yi makes some sense here, but I'm not sure how well he's going to synergize with this newfangled like Transcendence, Jotun's Crusher, Brawler style build. We might see him go a little bit more so towards the standard Kin size, Wind Demon, things along those lines.
Just typical power, whatever can let him box overall on that lane. But Hachiman, you had mentioned, synergizes pretty well with some of the more recent builds. So that's going to be an interesting lane to keep your eyes on. Merlin, Gilgamesh that get locked in here. And this is a draft now, if I look at the Leviathans, maybe not quite running the exact same as the, whatever the top tier list is going to be. This feels a lot more just Leviathans up front with it. And, well, we were wondering whether or not it was going to be a Haddix or a Lasbra pick. It's a Loki.
They just get blown out whenever it got to a late game fight. They kind of drafted for late game and then still got blown out when it came to a late game fight. That's the concerning part. So I think they've got a better team fight than they did last time. It's a lot easier to execute Shinto just doing Merlin damage throughout. But overall, still a bit of a concern because the Bolts have just been so good when it comes to those late game moments.
Haddix actually teaming up with Lasbra to start clearing out some of these jungle camps. Meanwhile, Hardcore has been able to just walk up and do the buff on his own. Barracuda in a little bit of danger. He'll be forced to be pushed back towards that tower, but he's got some potions, so he'll be able to sustain up just fine against some of this healings. Overall, it just seems like it is a good stat stick to have no matter what.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if Veneno doesn't go for that Divine Ruin. So that's the direction I'm expecting. I mean, Lasbra is going to have a lot of weight on his shoulders because it could be difficult with how much support all the Leviathan's backliners have in order to get some of these kills.
Hardcore, he'll dash in, and Lasbra will go in with some swipes, but not a whole lot of follow-up here. Just putting some poke against Hardcore, not willing to commit the ultimate out of the Loki to try and take him down. It's just Haddix who burns the Sentinel of Zeus. Hardcore makes it out, doesn't have to use any relics either.
Yeah, it might be a good opportunity now for Panatom to show up because no beads for Haddix. He's got Blink instead, and without that Sentinel of Zeus, maybe a little CC chain is possible. If they can bait that jump, use the Winds of Shamash on the follow-up, could be good.
Exact same time that we saw it last round, that this time Barracuda's got to leave. He'll make it back to the tower, and so will Jake, but the tower is not a safe haven for him. Wrong, you and Panatom dive under with Zapman, and they pick up another 2 kills in the dual lane, exact same way they did in game 1.
Literally the exact same timing. Dual laners are 5 for the Leviathans. They aren't 5 for the Bolts. And Panatom walks on over. And now, if you're Ro, you're the coach of the Bolts. It's like, okay, why are we not hitting 5? Why are they hitting 5?
You might as well just go back for it. I think that was that the old Lassus mentality he used to have. It's like, well, I was gonna go back and get my Chronos Pendant, but I just happen to have enough for Ratatouille. Haddix might be staring down the barrel of 3 Leviathans. He'll get hit by the Earthen Fury, dropkick immune by the ultimate. When does Shamash come through? He'll leap away. Panatom will chase him down, and Hardcore will make sure to lock him down. Leviathans get another pick under the tier 1 tower. Lasbra too late on the rotation to help out his solo.
It's a really good job tanking up that tower, making sure that Rongyu was the one tanking and that he doesn't need to go super deep. He can just stand there and watch his fellas do his dirty work for him. Consistently on your purples and trying to really pressure you out and win through the early stages of the game, but definitely a bit of a different look for them these last few weeks, particularly this week where they did it against the Kings and did it against the Leviathans again in game 1.
It's been a little bit of a dynamic shift between these two teams. You know, you're talking about the Bolts used to be very early game. The Leviathans used to be that late game team. They were the ones who, no matter what lead you build, we're going to fight back against you every single time. Lasbra in danger, a blinking from Panatom, but he can't find him out of the stealth. Instead, Lasbra will turn it back on him. Winds of Shamash and the Assassinate going to be jumped right over. Panatom will trade out his life 1 for 1. Haddix credited to the kill. And Haddix will be able to walk away with Jake, but it's a 1-1 trade here.
Should have been 1 for 0 though, J-Mac. I mean, that Scarab's Blessing just goes on the wrong target from Jake. Ulted himself. Lasbra was a little bit too close.
The Nanu in danger now. Zapman rotates over to mid and puts the mid laner in the dirt, and Iaijutsu gets the Taiko drums out of him. It'll immediately put him down, gets the mid camp for his trouble, and Zapman just going to try and exploit this lead that he's picked up for himself. 2-0-1. Continue to push up this lead. 4,000 gold to their name after that Pyromancer goes down, and an extra couple of kills. Now starting up the Gold Fury, and with the Merlin, a really good god to kind of burn this one down. Ice Dance helps take it down to half, and then Shinto will use the fire to try and zone Jake away, but Gold Fury hasn't been taken away just yet. Jake gets caught in the middle. The root holds Rongyu in place, And Panatom's rotation over means the Leviathans can secure the Gold Fury, who used the drop kick just for a little bit of extra mobility, but a quick escape from the Leviathans mean a nice and clean objective by this mid laner. So Shinto just gets the poke, and they get a little bit of tier 1 tower pressure. Venenu now surrounded as Panatom blinks under the tower, goes for the drop kick, but whips it, and that'll be a quick out for Venenu. Now turning it back, Haddix is turning the tables on Panatom. He'll fall down, and an incoming ultimate from Lasbra stuns out Shinto, gets the beads, and the chase after is good. Lasbra takes down one, and Hardcore and Rongyu, the frontliners left to try and chase out this Loki.
Oh, good ultimate this time from Jake, but Zap might be in position to punish on the revive. Ven's dash gets canceled, but should be able to get it off.
Gets out under the tower. Now it's Jake here in the middle of 2. He'll be able to get away in a clean fight from the Bolts. Nets them 2 kills. They don't lose out on anybody, but they lose out on quite a few relics. You see 6 of them burn during that engagement just to make sure that they can keep their mid laner, keep that jungler alive. Troll around that fire giant, but now the Bolts here, 17 minutes in, starting to be a little bit more proactive. They win a fight, they take a Pyromancer, and they might be looking for even more. Shinto rotates over and finds Jake, but he's surrounded by 3. Lasbra goes in with the Assassinate, grabs Shinto, and it's Venenu ready for him on the flicker. Shinto falls down from the dot damage. It's more than enough. It's a 1-1 trade. Lasbra kicked against the wall, but Barracuda's rotated over. The stun makes sure to help Lasbra get out. It's a pullback. Rongyu grabbed, and Barracuda Lasbra will put him down. It's a double kill for the jungler, but Jake with no ultimate available, and Zapman rotating over. Could be a kill for the Leviathans. They pick up 1. Can they pick up even more? 2 down. Haddix caught in the middle of 2. The cripple field holds him in place, but Haddix makes it back to the tier 1.
Man, Zap came into that fight red hot, but Barrett's stun right at the very end may have just saved Haddix's life. A really good fight back and forth between these two sides. I love the aggression there from the Bolts. They know Shinto doesn't have relics. They go in for him right away, but Shinto, after flickering maybe the wrong direction, didn't realize where Venenu was, didn't flicker down towards his jungle, heads towards his tier 1 tower in mid, finds himself, he knows he's dead because he's barrel stuffing a Raijin, but gets all of his damage off before he dies and made it a really easy cleanup kill on the back end for Panatom.
Barra tries to go for the triple bounce there, but doesn't end up finding anything. It'll just be a purple buff stolen away by the Leviathans. Instead of the Kings in game number 1 here up against the Leviathans, but there hasn't been as much fight back from the Bolts that we saw from that previous game. They've been a little bit more passive. Maybe we'll finally start to see them be a little bit proactive around this fire giant.
Down about 8,000, but the Leviathans are going to do this much faster than they did last game because of Zapman's crit.
Fire giant is almost down. A quarter health and a drop kick shoves Haddix in the back line. He's
They
in the
picked
middle
it
of 4, picks it away. Leviathans do get the fire giant, and now Haddix is stuck in the middle of 4, and he will fall down. Shinto credit for the kill. Hardcore gets the root against Venenu, and that's dangerous for the mid laner. Lasbra, he'll sneak around the back with a blink in by Hardcore. Venenu in danger. The revive is being waited out while Zapman grabs Jake, and Panatom picks up the mid. It's only Lasbra left to try and slow them down, as Barracuda has nothing to do with this fight.
I don't know if they can end though, J-Mac. There's still a lot of towers up for the Bolt side of the map. That's gonna make that Titan pretty tanky. But Barra doesn't have ult. They don't have a big wave coming. I don't know. I think this could be close.
Lasbra is here. Barracuda just went back to base, and it's a 5-strong Leviathans up against this Titan. Can they do it? Is the defense from the Bolts gonna be enough? Hardcore is falling low. Barracuda and Lasbra getting some good damage. Dropkick shoves the jungler away, but the Titan is just taking a little bit too much. Barracuda picks up 1, Lasbra picks up a 2nd, but the Titan is the ultimate name of the game. Leviathans, just shy of 23 minutes. They take game number 2.
Slightly more for early game pressure, so they were able to keep that fight even, but around that 8, 9, 10-minute mark, the Leviathans hit that signature pace that we saw in game 1 and established themselves a lesser lead here in game 2. I believe it was 7,500 going into that very last team fight, and they were able to crush the Bolts around the fire giant and immediately transition it into a game 3 situation. And I think it really was just the Leviathans playing with a lot more comfort this time around. It just felt like their team composition was a little bit easier to execute on. Zapman in particular has a much better performance here in game 2, actually finding a couple of solo kills, not necessarily up against Barracuda, sometimes up against the jungler, inside of the jungle. From there, the Leviathans able to transition that into exactly this.
Yeah, there were a couple of good picks from Lasbra on the other side that slowed down the Leviathans a little bit, but it didn't seem to take enough charge. They were finding way too many fights back in their favor. I even heard Aggro joke towards Shinto saying, well, hey, if things aren't going your way, just lock in Merlin, right? And Shinto agreed heartily with that statement. Apparently, it works out pretty well for him. We'll see how much damage he was able to put up. 1, 3, and 2. Not the most spectacular slash line. Actually, Zapman that maybe catches my eye more than anybody in this, because there were so many engagements where it'd be like back and forth, even 4v4, and then Zap would just show up and somebody's health bar was erased, and you're just like, damn, dude, calm down just a little bit. He puts up 8,000 damage, and granted, given the length of the game, that's going to be a hefty chunk. Actually 2k down from where Barra was. But you can see it being a lot more effective damage. Same thing there for Shinto. They have 1-2-0 between the two of them, and that was the very first week of Season 8. Leviathans were able to close that one out 2-0. And since then, it has been 2-1s or 3-1s, depending on where they were playing. Nobody's been shut out since May, April. A long time for these players, as it is going to be the Terra first ban. Bolts will be the first pick team once again. So you have to remember, last time around, their first 3 were Terra, Yamoja. They're already on track to keep those going. Khepri was the third one. On the other side, it was Odin, Tiamat, Serket when Leviathans were in this. But it seems like they're learning their lesson from Game 1 and getting rid of the Geb.
It's just so annoying to deal with the Gebs, the Sylvanas, and the Khepris of the world. Those are the 3 tried and true, like standard OG Smite Guardians that are just there to make sure that you're having a harder time playing against your opposition. Geb with the Stone Shield, Khepri with the Scarab's Blessing, all just make it so much harder for you to finish off these kills, essentially forcing you to kill them twice. And I guess the Bolts didn't want to have to deal with it themselves either, removing Khepri from the playing field, and Leviathan strike back by taking Morgan Le Fay out of the play field. Tiamat, though, finally works her way through, gets first picked overall by the Bolts.
Yeah, I'm wondering about this. The Morgan gets banned over Tiamat here, both picks that are deadly for Venenu, but the Tiamat feels like it's easier to deal with maybe in the early game where the Leviathans have already been getting a lot of their pressure. Is that a switch-up that you're okay with, or does that make you a little nervous?
I'd argue that the Morrigan and Tiamat are similarly weak inside of the early game. Morgan a little bit easier to shut down, I'd say, just because you don't have that leap to escape out of these situations. Sure, you got a little bit of a stealth, but Tiamat still has just like more abilities than most mages, as well as a leap.
Just inherently.
Yeah,
she just does more,
She's got more dudes, too. She just spawns up some people, so it makes it a little bit harder to shut down
You want to fight me? I got a crew.
Yeah, Tiamat's always jumping, man. It's never a fair fight when she's around, but when you leave Tiamat up, you got to expect that the other side's also going to find some value picks, and one that we had thought would be highly contended within the set, Serket, getting locked in for the Leviathans. With Ardio headed towards Soul Lane more than likely, I think Serket, although can go into the jungle, especially with these 8.9 assassin changes, maybe a little bit more slated for the support role here.
Has been a very popular pick for the supports in this matchup, just in general. That's what we saw at the very beginning of the day between the two of them. Serket is, admittedly, I would hedge my bets towards Rongu, but you never know. Panatom does like this
He
pick
likes
just
it so
as
much,
well. And it feels good. No matter who plays it, it feels good into the Tiamat. So it's just a win-win in the draft, it feels like, for the Leviathans. Alongside that, Ardio, again, not the most successful god that we have seen who has conquered what has been, I believe, almost 100% pick ban. And no, it has been 100% pick ban throughout the last couple of weeks. But she's still doing a lot, and it's making it real difficult to just exist against her.
Yeah, Ardio is just so annoying to deal with. And
hey, you want some healing?
Specifically against Tiamat, Ardio kind of removes your ability to use your shift stance, right? You only really have access to the one phase as long as that cripple field is around you. And if Ardio's on the map and she's got priority targets in front of her, she's probably going to be on top of this Tiamat more often than not. So what do the Bolts do to try and help out with that situation? Draft themselves a iron wall of a front line. Sylvanas and Cerberus, both with large circular AoE CC abilities, should be able to create some space up against this Ardio. Sylvanas with a knock-up, Cerberus with a Stygian Torment, both going to be able to reposition this Ardio, as she does not have any inherent CC immunity inside of her kit, which should, again, make it a little bit easier for Ven to perform on Tia.
Now this is a mid laner locked in, Raijin, for the Leviathans, that for a long time was an undefeated mid laner. This is still a hefty, like, 70 to 80% win rate overall, I believe, for Shinto. So something you gotta be a little nervous about with how well this has performed for them. Alongside that, Serket makes things shift heavily in their favor. But Ardio's matchup versus Cerberus specifically is one that has not really been going her way the last couple of weeks. If I remember correctly, the few times we've seen it, Cerberus has been able to come out on top each time. And as you'd said, with an Iron Wall, Sylvanas up there, the Tiamat who can kind of survive a lot throughout the duration of the game, it feels like the Bolts are just going to be difficult to tack kills onto.
Yeah, but as of right now, the Bolts are really looking at, as far as pressure is concerned, just the Sylvanas in the support role should be able to kind of sway the lane slightly in your favor. Having AoE audios from your Guardian feels pretty nice, but now you got to start looking towards these Hunters, or if you're the Bolts, you're looking towards Junglers. Seems like they agree with us on the desk that this Surcat is likely headed into that support role, as they have banned out Gilgamesh already. Now following it up with a Susano saying, all right, Panatom, you have to go a little bit deeper inside of your God pool. But I want to see some relatively aggressive picks now to round out this Bolts draft. I mean, I think Ul is still out there.
Yeah.
Kind of wild that he's still available right now and should help out a lot with a Sylvanas inside a lane. And when I was talking about aggressive picks, I was referring to the Bolts, but the Leviathans take one in their own right. Erlang Shen locked in, and look, man, I know that we're really excited about 8.9. Assassin's finally going to get played again. You want to go towards those, but Erlang Shen with Mannequin Scepter in its current state,
Yeah.
I'd argue, is still incredibly strong. In my mind, still like a top 5 jungle pick.
And you have to look at it, right? You've got 2 taunts now, like Surcat taunt being available, but also her engage and her ult. You've got Raijin, you've got Erlang. That 3v3 in mid just feels deadly on the side of the Leviathans, but you've got Artio locked in alongside it, makes it the front line seem even stronger on their side. But it's the Raven and the Hachiman Mifflin that it gets locked in at the very end. This was taken by Zap last time. He's still waiting for his pick. Ullr's still available, and yeah, there it is. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, this was one that Zap just, again, it felt like had a very explosive performance. Same thing can be said for the Ullr.
I would say that these are the 2 most aggressive drafts we've seen so far in this set. I mean, Erlang with Mannequin's always going to be pretty aggressive. Surcat support, Ullr duo lane, that is a ton of kill pressure, but you've got good wave clear out of the other end for the Bolts. It has been a lot of Geb and lower pressure gods for the Bolts. Not so much this time around. You've got a Raven for Lasbro, which is by far the earliest game jungler that he's really played well. I think that I'm interested to see what the pace of this game is going to be, because these picks tell me it should be much faster, but I don't know. Something tells me it won't be that way.
We'll team up here to clear out the mid wave, and mid Harpies on the left side do go the way. The Leviathan's a taunt by Wrong You against Jake, but not much more beyond there. A leap in from Zapman. Thought he was going to go for an aggressive play against the 2, but instead it'll just be the Harpy that the Leviathans go for.
Almost disaster there for the Bolts. If Wrong You's second Cobra's Kiss had landed on Barra as he was starting up that dash, that could have been a really big play for them.
Venenu knocked up in the turtle form, rooted in place, and taken right down. Panatom strikes early in mid lane and gets a kill on the board for Leviathans. This time, surprisingly, not in the duo, but that's not to say there's no action here in the duo lane. Awesome Jake taunts it in, but Lasbra is the one who rotates over first this time. He'll pick up Zapman and maybe Wrong You as a nice extra prize for the Bolts. Wrong You is just a little too mobile. Lasbra needs one more hit, but Barra grabs it from range. The basic attack from the Hunter puts him a double kill.
Finally, this duo lane for the Bolts is like, all right, fellas, we are sick and tired of getting killed by Panatom on these rotations. Lasbra, maybe you rotate over, and that one pays off beautifully. Right on time for him to come in and punish Zap for jumping in.
I mean, it's wild to think it took 3 games for Lasbra to go back to his signature, you know, kind of level 2-3 cringe gank in duo lane, but he pulls it out here in game 3. Finally gets the Bolts on the board early compared to the last couple of games where they've had to wait a little bit longer. Haddix will be knocked up by Panatom. The root comes through from Yarkor. Won't root anybody in place. Overhead kick from Lasbra, maybe a little bit early. The pin locks him in, but he's able to get back under the tier 1 tower. Haddix will walk forward, but he's only level 4. Doesn't have that ultimate available to him just yet. And, well, now I'm stuck in place. My leap is down or my dash is down, so now I just kind of have to sit here and wait and hope he doesn't kill me, but usually it's not the case. He usually is. A nice kill. Haddix used his ultimate. It's immediately countered by Wrong You. It'll be a leap in and a blink from the jungler. Haddix has nowhere to go, and he's put right down. Lasbra up downs right in place. Arkor and Panatom take a good chunk, but Panatom's heal from the ultimate comes back on, gives him a nice chunk back.
Right, just like that. It's, again, the Leviathans being nice and aggressive. Haddix probably has to try and save the ultimate equally as much pressure and damage. It's difficult for Lasbra to make an easy impact.
Do they know he's there is the question. Well, maybe they'll find out. Wrong You gets exposed by Lasbra. He'll taunt him back in with the Deathbane, and then the ultimate throws him right into the clutches of Shinto, and that may not be enough to save his life. The last tick of the ultimate will be enough damage. Wrong You, all that patience pays off, and they take down the jungler.
Trap sprung by the support, and just like that, it's another kill for the Leviathans, and look at where he's going next, heading right back over to solo.
And immediately looking for Haddix. A knock-up from Panatom is good. Haddix will throw him under the tower and stun him in place, but he's surrounded by 3 again. And another kill for the Leviathans, taking down Haddix. No beads were available in the ult. A little premature to help him out.
Jake tries to find Shito in mid, and he'll pull him to no avail. It doesn't do a whole lot.
His third item, nor has he picked up his other relic.
Interesting that Zap's the one to pick up the brawlers. I mean, Panatom, you rarely see a brawlers for an Erlong Shen because he's only proccing it with 2 abilities, the 2 and the 3. So when he wants anti-heal, most of the time it's Toxic Blade.
Wrong Yuga dives in aggressively, finds Veneno with the ultimate. A quick leap out from him, and a pull against Shinto gets the beads from the mid laner. That'll be a quick disengage for the Leviathans. They got what they want out of the Bolts, at least. The Bolts able to strip away 1 set of defensive relics from the Leviathans.
And it didn't cost them anything at all. No beads used, no ultimates used. Really good patience by the Bolts in that situation. I liked the idea from the Leviathans, just didn't work.
Shinto aggressively going up with the Taiko drums. He's not going to find anybody wrong. Use the one in danger. An ultimate from Haddix will throw him right back into the clutches. And the EI Jutsu from Barra takes him down. Hardcore in the middle of all, and Jake trying to find an escape path. Panatom gets a big heal with the ultimate, but Haddix gets an even bigger shot of damage with that spit. Shinto falls down, and the Gold Fury could go the way of the Bolts here right after this fight.
So Jake gets a couple of assists that fight, but it doesn't really tell how that whole fight really goes their way because of him. Because Shinto uses beads top left off his pull, and then he walks around the corner again, and Shinto's so scared of this pull in, uses Taiko drums in order to not get pulled again, and then he walks into melee range for it.
Uh-oh, Pyromancer started. Panatom low, no ultimate. Leviathans get the Pyro, but they lose their jungler and maybe lose Hardcore. He's looking for a chance to get that dash out, but he is surrounded by 4. How tanky is this bear is a good indication. The root holds him in place. The knockup takes him out of the dash entirely, but he's still alive, and maybe Wrongyu could turn this around. An ultimate from Haddix will make sure to run him back in, and Wrongyu now stuck in the middle of everybody. Venenu picks it up. It's a 3 swing for that Pyromancer.
Huge plays by the Olympus Bolts, just punishing the Leviathans for their oversteps, and they do it again. Vera's looking to find Zap.
Vera gets stunned. It's the 1v1 of the Hunters you don't get to see. The Aussie comes in, but it's not powerful enough. Zapman doesn't need lifesteal. All he's got are his abilities and basics, and that'll be enough to get the 1v1 trade against Barra.
Game waves are worth a lot. So if you lose, you die, you miss 3 waves, enemy ADC gets 3 waves. Not only do they get the golden experience from killing you, but then all of that extra farm after.
Barracuda chased down by Zap and Panatom. He'll get the purple buff and not much further chase, and now might be turning over towards Jake. He gets pinned in place, forced to use the ultimate, but is that ult enough to save his life? Wrongyu goes in with one of his own. That will be a dead tree. Jake goes down. Haddix picks up 2 with the ultimate. It's Wrongyu and Shinto who are low. A Thunder Crash out, but Haddix is willing to chase out that mid laner, but he takes a ton of damage right back in return. Now it's Haddix who's on the run. One more shot from Panatom is all that they need, but it's Hardcore who's just bullying Lasbro, the 1v3, going the way of the Guardian. Hardcore picks him up in the middle of all, and Zapman rotates over. Hardcore still alive. Zapman picks up the double. Can he get the triple kill? The light steal from Farah, not quite enough. Zapman takes him down.
What a play from the former ADC for the Leviathans and the current ADC for the Leviathans. Yarkor just keeps taking these outnumbered fights, and the Bear Shark himself just takes it down. Leviathans and the Bolts just get too separated. Lasber not able to do nearly enough damage on the back end to match what they needed. Haddix ends up getting chased out and killed, and then Zap's there. The only one. No other Leviathan came to help Yarkor, by the way. They all were like, oh, 1v3, he's dead. Zapman, a man who's done plenty of 1v3s in his time, goes, no, buddy, I got you. I'm coming in.
He shows a little bit of sympathy towards you. I've been in this predicament myself. I'll come and help you out. And look how far Zapman rotates for this fight. He gets the kill against Haddix on the top side. Hardcore is still fighting against everybody else. He doesn't even get the kill against Lasbro. I thought that it was going to be his way. It does go to Lasbro, but Zapman rotates in and has perfect body blocks for him. Normally it's the frontliner who body blocks for your carry, but Zapman holding it up, and Hardcore with just enough healing in the kit, they stay alive. Zapman picks up the trip, and the Leviathans swing the momentum of the game right back in their favor.
Lasber's in trouble here. No beats. He's got to use Mystic Rush to get out.
He's trying to get out, but that knockup from Panatom is just too much. Now he's rooted as soon as he gets out of there, and a taunt back in from Panatom, slowed down and shot down. Panatom gets another kill. Jake under the tier 2 tower in a little bit of danger, but he'll manage to squeak on by, and Zapman now level 20 with a Bumba Spear. He'll go ahead and just start shredding through these towers.
Zap just looking too good on the Zooler, man. I mean, I don't know how you stop him now. Just this backline for the Bolts is so far behind in experience and in itemization that I think that Shinto and Zapman should be able to just run through these team fights.
So split up the map here as a 3-2. 2 on the mid lane and now 3 over towards the left side. Panatom rotates over. Jake gets taunted in. The Phoenix is definitely the one who is losing this fight, only down to about 5% health. Just takes maybe one more auto from Zapman. An ult in from Haddix, and may have been the ult that ends his life. Panatom takes him down. Jake gets taunted back in by the Tycho drums, and Zapman finishes the job. Barracuda tries to fly as far away as he can on that horse. It'll be just far enough to get him to the fountain, but the Leviathans have done the damage. Left side bird is gone, and the mid Phoenix, their next target.
Shouldn't be an end quite yet, though, from the Leviathans. I mean, 25 seconds on Jake. Maybe the Leviathans can push in this mid Phoenix and then go straight for Titan.
Rongyu is looking for the fight. He jumps in, but Ven and Bear are so far back, he can't find anybody with it. So 2 Phoenixes for the Leviathans, and immediately they'll turn back away. Buff is up, so they'll get a little bit of extra defense and a little extra damage coming from this Phoenix, but Zapman doesn't seem too keen on walking right in, waiting for one of those frontliners to jump in, or maybe they just wait out the Fire Giant buff and see how much more they can strip away from the Bolts. Fire minions, Fire Oni minions, I should say, pushing up that left side, and the Bolts are going to have to send somebody there to answer them because these minions are the most powerful ones you can get in the game, and they can shred that Titan if you're not paying attention. Lasbra kind of half steps over towards it. Yarkor walks in for the Phoenix, and the Leviathans will take that prize. It's an ultimate out of Awesome Jake to respond in kind. It's the ultimate from Panatom. Rongyu rooted out. Quite a bit of damage from the mid laner. Rongyu goes down. Jake credited with the kills. Zapman quickly leaps out. Lasbra goes right in with the ultimate.
That's not going to be enough, and Shinto's damage will be Jake.
Oh,
has no choice
minions.
but to go and help the minions. Barra left all alone, and Zap's going to claim him.
Barra's going to go down. The minions do get cleared out, but the Leviathans are still here 4 strong with another wave that can go right in. Titan going all the way down, and all of that thanks to the help of those fire minions. A good pull from Jake, but not enough to save the day. The Leviathans come out in Game 3 swinging and close it in 24.
Inside of Game 1. Game 3,
Said
though,
that.
not nearly as easy for the Olympus Bolts for them to get away with, and the Leviathans able to push their lead. I think Panatom in particular has an incredibly strong performance on this Erlang Shen, and look, man, I'm not going to toot my own horn too much here, but Erlang Shen is good. I don't know why these junglers are still ignoring this pick. Glad to see that not only is it Layers, but also Panatom able to pull this one out. And you know who else has a great performance? This guy,
Yeah.
Zapman.
And this was insane when and it wasn't even this part of it, although this was really, really fun to watch. Just getting the I don't even know if you can call it the pure 1v1. I guess it is still a pure 1v1.
I'd
But
give it to him.
Zap had already killed 2 people in the process. I mean, that play between him and Hardcore was just insane to watch together. And it just feels like, again, everything lined up for them. Really good taunts. You had really good setup from both the Erlang Shen and the Circuit here from Rongyu. And Zapman just got to have fun late game. Same thing for Shinto. They just got to let their damage unleash. And it kind of reflects here in the KDAs.
Don't you have a spreadsheet for like all the Hunter 1v1s where you just keep track of those? You're going to mark that
The
one down?
1v1s.
Yeah, I think so, don't you? Like the solo kills?
No. Whenever I need solo kills, I just ask Zayden and I say, hey, any kill, and he pulls up specifically kills that gave no assists.
Huh.
So that I don't keep track of that one. I
Oh.
keep track of winions, 7 this year.
All right. fair
Most
enough.
Fire Giants in a single game, 8. For some reason, I have that listed twice. Now, see how the rest of the week's going to shake out. We just watched the Leviathans take on the Bolts. Next week, the Leviathans will have to take on the Warriors and the Titans to see if they can continue their undefeated streak. But that was the only set that they play this week. Dragons and the Scarabs are going to be coming up just after this. And you'll never guess where it is, Mifflin. It's in the studio.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah,
you didn't
they've
even give
been-
me a chance to guess.
Well, yeah, because I said you would never guess. I'm not going to give you the chance.
Because I won't let you.
And, of course, they're going to be setting up. As of right now, they were hanging out in the break room watching the game. I heard a lot of claps when the Uller Zap 1v1 or
Oh, yeah.
the Bear Zap 1v1 was going on as they were watching it. A very highly contested match. And then, of course, more matches tomorrow. Take a peek at the standings. You can see the Bolts now at 3-2, just behind the Tartarus Titans. Top 2 in this round robin does matter a ton. You get to choose your opponent's group mates if you are in the top 2. So right now, the Leviathans sitting pretty, admittedly also knowing someone's going to be targeting them.